Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel and welcome to my Nimzo-Indian defense series. So in this series we're covering a very nice and effective weapon while playing against d4. So it's already video number 10, so within the introduction video it's video number 11. So we're continuing to follow opening lines in this very nice opening, I think, because in my introduction video I mentioned also that I think the best way to proceed against d4 is the Nimzo-Indian defense, and I think you should try it out because it's really a healthy opening and it's a natural opening, and you can really play really calm game, I think, get into a middle game and equalize the game in an early stage of the game, which is the main idea while playing as black. So today we'll continue the series with the so-called Kmoch Variation. The Kmoch Variation is aggressive. It's an aggressive setup by white. Is trying to build this really pawn storm in the center, like in the same-ish attack, if you're familiar maybe with the King's Indian. And I've covered also the King's Indian series against d4, so you can check out my video against the same-ish attack. So here it's a little bit similar, but in this particular line of the Kmoch Variation we'll go into sort of Benoni setup, so you see what's all about. So let's check it out. I've prepared, I think, 2 instructive games played by Veselin Topalov, the former world champion, and he played, I think, some great games in the Kmoch Variation as black in this Nimzo-Indian opening. So here we have d4, of course, and in my last videos I finished these variations of the story attack with this aggressive e3 setup. Today, as said, we're continuing with the Kmoch Variation. We have knight to f6, we have c4, and now e6, the Nimzo-Indian setup. After knight to c3, bishop to b4, the pinning idea, and now we have this move f3. This move f3 is white's preparation to build a very powerful central control, and taking out the knight immediately is not so good because basically you have to compete somehow with white center, and still this bishop is not blocked out. So in some occasions of the Nimzo-Indian, white gets blocked out by its own pawn. So here I think black has a perfect diagonal for the bishop, or you can use also this bishop to a3. So this is not my recommendation to take out immediately. My recommendation is to play into a sort of Benoni style with the move c5, cracking the position in the center immediately. If white, for instance, takes d takes c5, then we can play bishop takes c5, and white will have some troubles because white has already weakened the dark squares in front of the king. So that's why I don't think that white will proceed here by taking the pawn c5. Here, in most of the times, white will proceed with the move d5, and here I recommend you simply to castle. That's one of the good things about the Nimzo-Indian. Because you can really play this fast opening style. You have already secured your king, you have already battled for the center, you have developed 2 minor pieces, so it's really in a healthy opening. But I've explained that more in my introduction video and this part 1 of this very nice series. So here e4, and now comes a very important move that I want you to memorize. This first couple of moves are, I think, easy to memorize and easy to play, but now comes a very important positional move, and it's the move d6. We'll see also continuations after d takes e6. Then of course you can recapture with the bishop. But if you, for instance, play something else, if you play something, I don't know, b6 or some other ideas, then let's see a possible continuation after maybe something like a6, a passive move. Then white can go knight to h3, which is a very important move. And now, for instance, after d6, white will try this move knight to f2, get another good knight, which is controlling the center, the very important e4 square. So of course you see that's a very, very important thing to get use of our pawn central control that white has built here. So now this knight has some extra tempos, and you can really fix the knight here. Simply proceed with bishop to e3, maybe bishop to e2, and simply castle, and then you have this very important pawn storm in the center and simply push pawns further. So that's why here you see this after the move d6, this move knight to h3 is not possible because we can simply take out here the pawn, a takes d5. After something like c takes d5, we can take out here this pawn on h3. After g takes h3, there are even some tactical threats here to take out the pawn, because after f takes e4, we have queen to h4, a very annoying check, I think, that white has white has to handle, and still with some rook to e8 ideas, also attacking the e4 weakness. So you see, or at least you don't have to even do this sacrifice. At least you have weakened the pawn structure in front of the king. Now you see the weaknesses here in white's position, so that's why this d6 move is a very important one. It's preventing this knight to h3 at the end, then after that knight to f2. So the instructive game that I wanted to show you in the Kmoch Variation, it's a game played by Alexander Grischuk against Veselin Topalov, really two top grandmasters. Veselin Topalov, of course, the former world champion, also a nice tactician, and also had some great opening preparations. Here, after the move d6, we'll continue the analysis with the move knight to e2. It's a reloading system of knights. Many times it has been played. Of course, white's idea is to recapture with the knight, for instance, is if bishop takes c3. But there is one problem about this move. This move cuts off the connection between the bishop and this pawn on c4, and my recommendation, that's why here, is to go into very, very aggressive line with the move b5. So simply playing really sort of a gambit style, because c takes b5 doesn't bring you so much. Here, if for instance take, then we can simply take e takes d5. Then you have to take, of course, with the pawn. You cannot take with the knight or with the queen because of this very annoying pin, and simply play rook to e8. Now this rook is on a very important file. It's attacking the king. You see how great this opening is, the Nimzo-Indian in this Kmoch Variation. Now we have a really nice attack. Our rook is on a very dangerous file. Still, we have a very active bishop. This knight is also aiming on the on this d5 pawn. Also, we have possibilities to play something like bishop to b7. And I think in this particular position, black has a comfortable game. Okay, white can try maybe something like bishop to g5. We can simply kick away the bishop with the move h6, bishop to h4, and now knight to d7. Another problem, simply get use of our very important square here. Knight to e5 can be played, knight to b6, attacking again this d5 weakness, or even a6 is the possibility. Then get this bishop very active and aiming against this knight on e2. So you see, it's not so easy here for white to defend. White basically doesn't have a good position to castle. Even kingside castling is dangerous. Queenside castling is also dangerous. So probably in most of these lines, the king will go here to the square f2. So tricky stuff already. As said, that's why this b5 move is very important. And here in the game, Alexander Grischuk tried the move knight to f4. We have e takes d5, c takes d5, and in this particular position, the most important thing is that we have built here a 3 versus 2 pawn majority on the queen side. So most of the times in the Benoni defense, you try this move a6 and then b5, but most of the times in the Benoni, your opponent plays the move a4. It prevents these types of ideas. So that's why you see we have already built a very nice pawn storm on the queen side. Still have a good control of the e5 square, because white's idea would be probably sort of an f4 or e5 pawn breakthrough. So we can always meet these moves with the move rook to e8, because the king is still in the center. The rook to e8 idea is a very important one in this particular line. Here in the game, a6 played by Veselin Topalov, and you see now we have really a fixed position on the queen side. And if, for instance, something like a3 happens, still you can take out the knight, or play even bishop to a5, and then maybe hide our bishop here on a very active square b6 with the preparation to play the move c4. Then this bishop would be aiming on another diagonal, which is a great thing, I think. Here bishop to e2 played by Grischuk, and now simply developing move, again getting a very powerful control of this very important center square e5. In the game castling, c4 was played. You see, we're simply pushing forward, but also we have now the possibility to maybe jump with our knight on c5, and then if the position allows it, maybe on this square d3. But of course it has to be prepared. So far this bishop and the queen are covering this d3, and of course the knight. But in some occasions your opponent gets maybe into another line, and then you can really occupy this very important square, because this square is of course on the 3rd rank and it's close to your opponent's king. So bishop to e3 played by Alexander Grischuk, and here a very important positional move, which I also would like to show you, because if we watch the pawns in the center, you see white has most of these pawns on the light squares, so that's why this bishop is a little bit blocked out by its own pawns, and this bishop is perfectly fine. It has a good diagonal, and we always like to say that the bishop is the key defender of squares on the board, so that's why going into a positional trade of dark square bishop is, I think, a great idea here. After bishop takes c5, knight takes c5, and you see we can now finally try something like knight to d7, knight to e5, and then get use of our again d3 square. But it has to be prepared, of course. Let's see the continuation of the game. b4 was played by Grischuk. C takes b3, not a problem. C takes b3, and now b4. Simply getting another pawn on dark squares, which is very important from an endgame's perspective. If we go into an endgame here, you want to have your pawns on dark squares, because when you have your pawns on light squares, then this bishop can attack it. On the other hand, if your opponent has pawns on light squares, then you see they could be an object of our attack, but they're also blocking out your opponent's bishop. So that's why here I think black has a favorable game. So here knight to b5 was played. Of course you cannot take because of this very annoying a file pin. Here queen to b6 with some discovered attack possibilities to play maybe even something like knight to d3 and then knight to f2. That's why king to h1 was played, and now g5. You see how Veselin Topalov is simply continuing to push the pawns on dark squares. Here we have queen to d4 attacking the knight on f6, but now knight to d7 again with the preparation to create a blocking system around the square e5. So here queen takes b6, knight takes b6, and here rook to knight to c7 attacking the rook, not a problem. Rook to a7 attacking the knight, and here again this idea knight to b5, but not a problem. We can hide our rook here on a very active square e7. In the game knight takes d6 was played, and here g takes f4. I'm not going to show you now the whole game. This is now completely winning endgame because black is a piece up. Of course lost the pawn, lost the central pawn, but still I think white doesn't have a good position here. This knight still have a good position. You can again try knight to d7, knight to c5, again targeting some weaknesses in your opponent's position, and Veselin Topalov won this game very easily. So the whole game will be in the description below, so you can check it out. You can check out the whole game, and also maybe do some analysis, some stockfish or other engine analysis, so maybe see some other clear lines in this particular variations. So let's see another game. I really found two great games by Veselin Topalov. It was I was searching for randomly, so I didn't just watch Topalov's game, but I think they meet with this idea of this very nice Kmoch variation. d4, knight to f6. Let's again remind us of this Nimzo-Indian setup. After e6, knight to c3, bishop to b4. The pinning idea, I've explained all of these ideas before in my previous videos, so the most important thing about this series is to watch them from this introduction video, then part 1, part 2, and so on. So here again with this f3 idea, the Kmoch variation, here c5. Here we have the d5 again and d6. Again, this very important move, and e4. And here castling, again played by Veselin Topalov, and now knight to e2, b5. Here we have knight to f4, and now Veselin Topalov tried the move a6. It's also a common idea, not a problem. Still, we are hanging on to our very important space advantage. It's a game played by Artyom Timofeyev. Here bishop to d2 was played with the idea to, of course, trade off somehow this very annoying bishop on b4. That's why e takes d5, again releasing the pressure in the center. C takes d5, and again bishop to a5. A very important maneuver, again trying to get this bishop on b6 and then pushing forward the pawn here on c4. Bishop to e2, we have knight to d7, again with the preparation to get use of our dark squares here. Castling, knight to e5, we have castling, and again similar idea, c4. So these are the moves you have to remember, you have to memorize, of course. And here I think black can do something always here with this pawn majority, with the situation 3 versus 2 pawns on the queen side. This is the side where we should attack. Here b3 was played, again this similar idea, b4, knight to a4, and now c3. So you see how black is already kicked away here. In the game, bishop to e3 was played, and now bishop to c7, not allowing this jump of the knight, of course, on b6. We have a3, and now a5, simply supporting our pawn here, which is of course the defender of this very important pawn. So this is the so-called supported pass pawn. So I just want you to imagine a position in which we don't have any pieces more on the board, just the pawns. Then from an endgame perspective, this would be a winning endgame for black, because we have this very important strategical element in endgames, and it's this so-called supported pass pawn. So if this game goes into an endgame, black is completely winning, because you can never catch up with this pawn. So bishop to b5 was played, here rook to b8 attacking the bishop, queen to e2, and now h6, preparing again to build sort of a fortress on dark squares with the move g5, rook to d1, queen to e7, 8 takes b4, of course 8 takes b4, rook to d4 attacking the pawn, but here very important move g5, creating an extra tempo. We have knight to h3, and here bishop to h3, of course. After g takes h3, we have again accomplished a position in which we created a very nice blocking system on dark squares. Still we have possibilities even to take out here the move, the pawn on f3, maybe take out the bishop and similar ideas, or build fortresses here on f4. But Veselin Topalov played a very attractive idea here. He sacrificed some rooks for the exchange. He played here rook takes b5. After queen takes b5, we have rook to b8 attacking the queen. We want to stay onto our very important space advantage here that we have created on the queen side, so that's why this positional sacrifice I think was a great one. In the game, queen to e2 protecting this f3 pawn, and now knight to h5, again trying to create a very nice outpost with the preparation, maybe queen to f6, and then attack this h3 weakness. But here the bishop is very good. Again, I'm pointing out that this bishop is a key defender of dark squares in front of white's king, so that's why trading off a good piece here for a good knight is probably a problem for white, because then you have again this dark square weaknesses in front of your king. Your king is very endangered here, and with the possibility maybe to somehow get this bishop activated and aiming here on this very important diagonal. So here h4 was played by white, and here knight to f4. We have queen to f2, and now queen to f6, simply supporting our knight. We have h takes g5, and now rook to d1 with the preparation to probably play something like rook to g1. In the game, bishop to d8, we have rook to a2, we have queen to h6, g3, and now king to h7, getting out of the g file, rook to g1, and now knight to g6, getting out of this potential trades of pieces here. Now this knights are perfectly fine, very good defensive pieces. Here we have rook to f2, and here queen to h5, f4. We have knight to d3, trying this reloading system again. Here we have rook to f1, and now bishop to f6. Now this bishop is very dangerous. We can activate it here on this dark square. Still, white has some worries, because we can always push here c2, and then after that c1 with the promotion. So here bishop to a7 was played, rook to b7 attacking the bishop, queen takes d3, rook takes a7, and now rook to g3, knight to f4. And this is now a really comfortable game here for black, because this knight is basically unchallengeable. You have to, I think, sacrifice the rook here, because this knight is too powerful. After g takes f4, we have e5, but not a problem here. King to h6. Of course, you can take here, but you lose the rook, and this would be, I think, a completely winning endgame here for black. So in this position, after king to h6, white resigned. Veselin Topalov won the game. You see again in this Kmoch variation with the setup, with this aggressive setup, which I would like for you to memorize. Here after the move e4, we have, as said before, here this very important d6 move. Here then after that castling, simply securing the king, and after knight to e2, very aggressively here the move b5. This is the setup I want you to memorize. I think it's the best way to proceed against the Kmoch variation. You have to challenge your opponent's central control. If you allow your opponent that he simply push forward like f4, e5 here, this could be really dangerous. Then you get pushed away by the center pawn storm, and you probably lose the game. So challenging white center, I think, is the most important thing in this particular variation, and you can try it out. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll continue to do some more lines in the Nimzo-Indian setup with some more nice preparations. Meanwhile, you can watch my other videos from the series, of course, with the introduction video part 1 and so on. And you can also watch my King's Indian videos, in which I show you also a very nice opening against d4. And you can also watch my hyper accelerated ranked Sicilian series, in which I show you a very nice and effective weapon while playing against e4. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.